Okay, so this one's Dennis the Menace. Tell us about Dennis the Menace.
Dennis the Menace. I first heard his name during a letter, an anonymous letter that I got sent to me for the other parts of the wing and prison in Berlin at the time. And one of the situations was, because I never replied to it, but I was wanting to know who it was that kind of sent the letter. I asked about on the wing, and it turns out it was Dennis the Menace's brother-in-law,
right,
who had a position in which he'd been approached with Dennis the Menace by saying, I've done a deal with the prosecution. The prosecution are going to go favourably on him if he gives evidence against me. Now, I don't even know about that at the time. So that gave me a guide towards what's liable to be said, not exactly what is being said. You know, it's an indication of what somebody's going to say in the witness box. And he was prepared to go a witness for me.
Right.
But he sent a letter to me that I got through what you call prison mail.
Yeah.
And he wrote a letter to my solicitor, Peter Forbes, that the lawyer never got. So just as well I kept a copy of that one, because if I never kept it, you'd have been in a position in which, how do you get past a situation where somebody's reading your mail? They know exactly the letters that you're sent out.
Yeah.
They know where it's going to, so that's been intercepted, and then they moved them.
Right.
So that was the first time I ever heard of the name Dennis Wilkinson, or Dennis Woodman, he was known at that time. I got to know a lot about his history, his past history. I got to know a lot about the history where he's involved with, under his alias name, Dennis Sidney Wilkinson.
Right.
And was a Crown prosecution witness in maybe 15, 20 different trials. We got all that information, or most of the information, through a guy called Mark Leach.
Right.
Mark was subversive. He was kept in the segregation unit on the basis that he was giving the prisoners advice on education and on the exercise. And basically educating people on the basis that prisoners have got rights, you've got right to fresh air and all the rest of it. Mark Leach knew who this guy was because he saw him. He was quite a big impact in the English prison system, known as Wilkinson then. And apparently what had been said was, I've confessed to murder Arthur Thompson Jr., tried to murder Arthur Thompson Sr., going to supply him with Class A drugs, heroin, ecstasy, cannabis, cocaine. This is somebody who you've never even fucking met.
Yeah.
You know, this is somebody who's rattling off a big story. And he actually gave a statement at one point and mentioned something happened in a certain place, and I thought, right, hold on, that's quite a good point, because I'm going to tell the solicitor that I don't even know where it fucking is, so how could he? How well would they have got it? And I realised that he's been reading newspapers and building up his story into different bases on what he's going to be doing. So if he's canny enough, for want of a better word, Steve, he's wrote a letter purporting to be for his brother-in-law, saying that he was sorry for getting involved. He's going to present it to his lawyer. There's no shame in this cunt, right? So it gets to a situation where Mark Leach has agreed to meet my solicitor. Gave him all the info on it, put us in touch with another solicitor, Paul Barker at the time, who was representing Danny Vaughan, John Haas, who received substantial sentences in the past. It came to the attention of the English authorities because they thought, well, the investigative journalists have thought, there's a stink with all these cases. They were already on the case anyway, until they got his name changed and it just disappeared.
Yeah.
And then it resurfaced again, and they couldn't believe that it resurfaced in such a high profile trial. Now people turn around and say, Paul, you were very lucky in 1992. Lucky we were. I was unlucky to have him in the same building. Because if you go out to strip back the indictment, what was the evidence? Him, self-confession, drugs, self-confession. So all boils down to, they were quite prepared to have a high-ranking senior police officer do the exact same thing and what they done in England was during sentencing. There's a kind of quirky English law where you can have a character of good. Somebody of good character to go and speak or to hand a letter to the judge or to speak to the judge about how unfortunate it is somebody's got themselves in this position, blah blah, all the rest of it. And sometimes it is an unfortunate situation, but not with him, because people have got to get out the idea that he was a supergrass. He was never a supergrass. A supergrass involves the activity. Whether it's physical, it could be done with planning over the phone, it could be done with something. He never organised anything with anybody apart from Cutley's handlers or people who was willing to be gullible enough to listen to what he's saying, because he was doing it for a reason. His reason was to lower his sentence. And what he was doing with me was a carbon copy, because I sat in the dock thinking about the poor cunts that already sat in the dock before. No in Scotland. I knew the Danny Vaughan case, I knew the John Haas case, and it's like deja vu. It's like, what would they have done if they had known? They never had any idea who this guy was until maybe a week into their case. And then it was no surprise when he turns up as the star prosecution witness for the authorities in Glasgow. People have said, the experienced journalists have claimed it was too tempting for the cops not to use, or for the prosecution not to use them. Tempted with what? Somebody's got a conviction for sexually assaulting and abusing and kidnapping that got his sentence reduced being false evidence. So he was a serial perjurer. He was somebody who continued to go on a false remit, and there was the black humour side of it, as somebody had said, that he's heard more confessions than the fucking Pope. You know, so and all these things were, why should some people that's been adamant about fighting their cases for so long, all of a sudden, out of the whole population in England, before even he's involved in my case, has all these people confessed to him? It obviously caught the imagination, he talked involved in action, because Andy Bell, the guy's name, Andy Bell's name was the guy who came up to visit the solicitor. I was an extra for the investigation. What they were investigating was Dennis Woodman, and they titled it Dennis the Menace. So they were looking at his history, he gained evidence in English courts, and were astonished to find that he's had a new name, changed identity. They must have knew who he was. In my case, there must have been a way up of some sort and saying, are they going to believe him? Well, they'll believe him if we bring this guy in again. A copper called Mervyn Davies, who gave evidence at the sentencing of Dennis Wilkinson, and said to the judge, words to the effect that without the essential corroboration that Woodman Wilkinson had supplied, he's got no doubt in his mind that there would have been no successful conviction for the armed robbery. And in such cases, they gave him 2/3 his sentence off. You know, that's for kidnapping a Ugandan immigrant, sexually abusing him, raped him. He was looking at a life sentence. And obviously, I never knew his history, and it's only when you uncover part of his history, there was a big plot, there is a sinister plot, there is a conspiracy still going on, but it's time to put an end to speculation. Have I got tapes? Of course I've got tapes, they're going to get released. Have I got situations in which we can point towards Woodman being used in the same manner in two different countries with two different laws? Has it happened before? could it happen again? Because there it's in black and white. The disturbing thing about it is, I've known people who could be convicted and charged for less and be charged for perjury.
Mm-hmm.
I actually know somebody who was convicted on the basis of saying a false colour of a car. Mm-hmm. Never mind your 2 kids are fucking dead and you swear on their asses and it turns out they're alive and well. How more can you demonstrate that that's a lie that he took under oath? Mm-hmm. And the reason why they never charged him is because he'd done a deal with them. I actually watched him in the witness box leaning down on his first day and said something to the prosecution. And the prosecution looked at me and I just mouthed the word pervert towards the prosecutor. Because anybody that says we're sex offender, and I'm thinking, that's a right cosy bunch, that in the fucking corner. You know, and if I'd already been warned twice about my conduct on the dock, I didn't want to display any kind of displays that I'd done before, but it's kind of hard to sit there and keep your mouth shut when somebody's fucking claiming all these things. You know, I snapped at one point and then got warned not to do it again, so I never done it again. I let Donald Finlay rip him to shreds, but not only a capital crime. He was quite willing to prepare to get somebody else get done for him in order for him to get a substantial reduction on his sentence. He also tarnished the reputation of a well-renowned, respected lawyer, Peter Forbes, and said at one statement and another that he was offered £50,000 to keep his mouth shut, another 50 grand when he's keeping his mouth shut, and 10 grand a year for every year he's in. What is it, fucking pay as you go? Keep your mouth shut. Would you not be better just keep your mouth shut, no paying fucking nothing? It never came out to it. And in the judicial sense, how I came across it was I knew how I was feeling, and I'm looking at solicitors and even Donald Finlay at times questioning the accuracy of his stories, because he's obviously been reading up somewhere that there's history that he's had case files before and read them. I believe that he already had case files, because what we'd done was we asked the lawyer had asked to see the movement book in the segregation unit, because that tells you where all the prisoners are, when they're out, when they're in. And lo and behold, this cunt's fucking out after tea time up in the security office, signed up with such and such for chats, when I'm lying down in the concrete fucking cell and this cunt try to put you away for a long time, Steve. It's one of these things where regrets, aye, if you've done something, right, or if you've said something, no for some maniac to appear out the blue, totally staged professional witness, really good, but had a weak point. He never came up against anybody like Donald Finlay before, nor did he tarnish anybody's reputation before. Peter Forbes has got a fantastic reputation in the Law Society, and even for somebody like Woodman, Dennis Menace, to mention things about Peter Forbes, and in that regard, being offering bribes for people not to give evidence, it's just fucking nonsense, absolute nonsense. And the legal system knew it. Well, the solicitors, barristers, and everybody knew it. They knew Peter's no that type. You do get people like that, but unfortunately, Peter's no. And there was another meeting that was orchestrated by Dennis, the Menace. This time he get wired up by the cops to go and meet my solicitor to discuss this payment plan thing. And there's fuck all on it. There's nothing on it. I don't know what happened to that. They were just clutching at straws. And I think when you've got professional journalists turning and saying, "Oh, it was a bit too tempting not to use them." Well, was it right to use anybody who's a convicted? Is it a sex offender? Is it right for? I mean, the recent cases of people getting paid to go undercover for. This is a candidate for this.
100%.
This department. I think he'd get promised the world for doing what he's doing, but he never realised that he was. That the only reason I get charged is because of what he was saying. That was it. We weren't ready to go to trial because we didn't know what else was going to fucking crop up. But I knew enough to say this is a right cock and bull story, this one, I'm not waiting for any more extensions because they're handing over documents to the solicitor right, left and centre, saying this new statement's come in, this is come in, that's come in. And I think that was done on the basis of force in our hand to ask for an extension. And when I remember having a legal agreement on it, because this is the reason why I decided enough's enough, let's fucking go to court here, was 2 days before, well, not 2 days before, maybe 2 months before it, gets a legal visit in the same, what they call it, the window house, it's the segregation unit. And when I walked into the visiting room, my solicitor's sitting with Peter Forbes sitting with his hands on his head, kind of looking fucking really worried, shaking his fucking, and I thought, what else could be worse now? And it was only when I sat down, he looked at me and took his glasses off and went, Paul, my fucking career's ruined. I don't even think he actually swore, my recollection, but I think he probably wanted to swear, but he was too posh, if the guy didn't want to swear. But what he was going on about was, it's me charged with a murder here, Steve. In all due respect, the lawyer's looking at his reputation has been defamed, took it right personally. And I sat down, it's the first time that I ever thought and went, Peter, did you ever do all these things? He went, certainly not. I went, well, fucking join the club. And shake his hands. I said, come on, let's get to work on this guy. There's something not right here. And that's when we were, there was no evidence there, the trial should have been stopped earlier. But I think, and again, another sinister part, that people had tried to get rid of taxpayer-funded expose on the English judicial system that involved woodmen. And they done it in Scotland. They interviewed my solicitor. Try to access it and get a copy of it is fucking difficult. But we managed it, and I think as part of a kind of biased appraisal on the viewing, is I accept how bad it is, but so should the authorities, because it's an embarrassment. Be using somebody like that as a star witness, knowing his background, and siding with him on the basis of the fact that they had a star witness and built everyone about him, and it fell, and they wonder how it all fell. But the investigative approach that Walden Action had done on it was quite interesting. I watched it again recently, which prompted me to show my son it. My son's now 19. Purely on the basis that he's never seen it, probably never get access to seeing it, and since it's there, we'll be maybe focusing on it, and maybe nothing wrong with contacting the BBC to say, well, since it's a public broadcasting facility, since you're a taxpayer, since the whole episode was about this, are you going to put it on iPlayer? Because I actually put a request, because it came up on iPlayer. What would you like to? What series would you like to? You can get Countryfile, fucking Tortoise, how to grow the best fucking tomatoes, how to shear a sheep upside down. But try to get this, no fucking chance.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of one-sided on, we'll give you all the fluffy stuff, and against the judiciary or the Crown, or forget it, because it's a Crown-funded propaganda tool anyway, so I don't want to be having too much light shed under the darkness. But again, that's their problem. It's something that's still unfunny's business to me all these years ago. I'm not saying people are sick, fed up hearing me, but let's see them being sick, fed up with what's getting put in front of them without me saying it, because I don't need to say it. That's why it's unfunny's business. The unfunny's business part is, I need to move on. This is the game finished, because it is a big game. There's no winners in it. I never won, they never won. There's been a tragic loss of a variety of different people throughout the ways. And this is an example on how government collusion works, because if you're going to dismiss everything that I'm saying, or a readership's going to dismiss everything I'm saying, then that's entirely a matter for them, and I would respect it. But remember that these cases have went in front of other judicial people that could have said they're not proven, could have given the cops an out and went, maybe are not proven, and we don't want to get caught up in the war between all them fucking liars, and he's sweeter than sweet sitting there. No, I don't think so. What nailed the whole case was when Dennis Woodman got into a spat with Donald Finlay. My recollection of the events is Donald Finlay's asked him a question. He's looked away, totally dismissed him, and looked right at the jury and went, "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'm here to tell the truth today. I'm finished with crime. That man there told me that, and I swear my 2 kids dead ashes." So he spun it right, very confident in the witness vote, because he's got fucking loads of practice. He's rent a witness, rent a fucking perjurer. That's your guy. That's your guy. You know, so I don't want to spoil the kind of overspill for you, any viewing that you're going to be doing recently, but it's important that you get this, to watch it, because it's a book on its own. That there is just something on its own, Steve. It's something in which it's got, unless you, we spoke about cooking earlier on, sometimes you take 2-3 years to prepare it, and then you get 15 minutes, 10 minutes and you've devoured it. The whole point about it is to do it justice. My whole point about it is to bring stuff to the table with yourself and say, this is what it is. There's the other part of it, because if we're going to reverse the situation, Steve, I'd be asking you the same things. What have you got to back up what you're saying? Yeah. And if you've not got nothing, then it's only your word. Like how you end up in a bedroom in Rossi with 3 armed cops, isn't it? Fucking 2 armed cops, fucking 3 armed cops, one in particular putting a gun right at the back of your ear. So you get cagey, you get doing the thing, and there's an element of a gut instinct, and the gut instinct is, if you're doing something and see it through all the way to the existence of it, and try and get independent corroboration to match it, which has been difficult. The corroboration that we got, if you planned for it, you'd be a genius. It happened by accident, and we're going to use it. Finish
off now, because obviously we're here. I've come to your home. So it's, what's 2017? Yeah. Paul Ferris. Yeah. Like, you look back on your life, you look back on all the ups and downs, and you look at the roller coaster ride you've been on, and you look at the injustice, and you look at the stuff that we've talked about today, the setups, the continued setups really. What have you learned from it? And what do you hope to achieve moving forward? And are you happy, I suppose, is the other question. Are you happy in your life now? Or is there this is unfinished business, the book's about
I think the headline, the header, the working title, Unfinished Business, could be misconstrued by some mischievous people who want to cause mischief anyway, and say, I thought he was going straight. What's this unfinished business about? Yeah. Just to clarify, it is unfinished business. Unfinished business to the extent that it's the end of the conspiracy. I had all the time to put things together. Now you're closing doors and chapters on your life, which is quite relevant to the question that you asked. Am I happy now? Probably happy as I've ever been. It's the longest period of time I've not been in custody since I've been 16. Yeah. The only unfortunate situation just now is I had to take second prize because of the kids and their education, and they need to know their own grandparents, because you've been here, you've seen how solitude it is, and to an extent I've been quite fortunate and quite happy to have went this far, and I know there is another distance to go as well. I'm now looking at bowing out for the farm and moving done with the kids, and that's a kind of final resting resting bit where it is, because there's absolutely nothing up here other than the fact of maximising what you've got. All it takes a bit of planning. Somebody wants to do it. They'll come in and stamp their own kind of mark on what I've got here, and hopefully continue and make sure it gets looked after, because it's been beneficial for me. The solitude. Now people say, "Oh, I couldn't live in the country like that." One even mentioned, "What about the werewolves?" And I thought, "Well, what the fuck you mentioned that for?" He believed that there is werewolves, you know. So, but there's no way he's got a phobia about the darkness and things like that. My time here has been, on reflection, probably one of the best in my life. And it's just bowing out gracefully, and not so much. I think there's a big similarity between how I conducted correspondence with Reg Mackay before I was released. Yeah. And he told me, "Paul, at one stage you've got to make a statement." When I say make a statement, let's rephrase it. Let's talk to the media. You've got to give them something, otherwise they'll either make something up or fucking... If you've said it, then they can misinterpret, but at least you've said something. And I said, fair enough. And what I had to do, bear in mind I had 4 years, 8 months to think about going straight, Steve. There was nothing kind of evangelical with the prison gates opening in Franklin, and the booming voice for God, and you're cured and you're going straight. No, individuals make their choices. And going and talking to the media scrum that was there and saying that I'm glad of the support, the family that have stood by me, more importantly with Reg, emphasised the book, the need for the book. And there was a few wry smiles about what you're going straight. We've had that one before. And here we are, 15 years later. I know you get Reg, God bless him, in the past, when he's done his interviews, he said, Paul's out 5 years now, I think maybe it's time to give him a break. If Reg would have still been here, he'd be delighted, because he knew I would never have let him done. But the educational part of it, Reg helped me. Hopefully I could maybe end up in a position that people use the books, or people ask relevant questions, you're approachable, you know something that you're going to be... I don't see a career in that, put it that way, but there is a lot of problems, everybody's got them, you know, and it's situations in which, when you feel confident in yourself that you've done enough, I still don't feel I've done enough yet. I'll have enough done to make sure that my kids will be secure. But I've not done the maximum yet, so that I can move and integrate back then and just do normal things again. But I do understand that there's a load of baggage, even in the business capacity. It was hard for me to get a bank account. People might say, well, so what? Who would want to give you a bank account? That's a fair point. But what's the point? Equally, sending somebody to prison for this rehabilitation, and they're not getting a bank account. So they deal in cash, because they've not got a bank account. And then when they do get a bank account, it's any business that you're involved in, or any pubs, clubs, anybody with a licence that they feel is of not a fit and proper person, and you're an associate. You might have known them since you were 16. You know, and all these things that come into it. Other people looking at ventures and business and all the rest of it, Steve, there is an element where when you try to get normal things done, like release a bit of equity, because you've got to prove where the funds came from. You know, and when you're sitting on something in which you want to do a visual project, spoke to other parties involved, ex-actors, to get something like you and I are doing, where you would have the interview. The interview would be a transcript. The transcript, we could plagiarise it and then pick out, that would be a good visual part. So we could interact and fade out. So there is something in which, the only reason I would get involved in it and do it continuously is to not to point a finger at people and say, you can't be doing this or can't be doing that. It's to hopefully educate people clearly to the point where if you've not went through it before, if you've not travelled that path, there's the journey. That's what it is. You might get lucky, but you can't be lucky all the time.
Do you fear a knock at the door again? I mean, they struggle to get here, but do you have to come in by helicopter? But do you still, all this time you've said it's the longest you've been a free man, etc. Do you still fear a fit upcoming, others
no, in a strange way, no, Steve. I think it was. If you want to continue with it, you're going to believe what you're going to believe.
Yeah.
The information that I've got is enough to knock anybody out and feel paranoid and delusioned and all the rest of it. The facts are facts. You can't change it. I can't change it. What I've discovered is I've put my pieces together that stack up. The same way the prosecution find evidence to prosecute people. Yeah. I've just reversed it 360 and went, well, there's evidence there, there's my patch, and that's who I'm pointing the finger at regarding bent cops, bent officials in the Crown Office, and what you would call the CPS, because there was evidence there that they had in the previous one that could have shone light on what I'd said earlier on when we was talking about the forged currency with Ackerman. So as far as fit-ups are concerned, there's an element where it would be socially acceptable in certain circles, because they term it as pious perjury. And the pious perjury aspect of it is, although they're sworn to uphold the law, they'll bend it a wee bit and give false evidence against somebody who might have got away with something, or they're trying to bolster the case to convict them. Now, if that's in their remit and that's what they signed up and that's what they were doing, where's the training course for it? Because if there's no training course for it, they've went off the sat-nav, they went off their own chart, and they've decided what law and order's all about.
Yeah.
And you can't do it. You upset the rule of law. That's where you get people. Years and years ago, even my dad said to me, whatever you do, son, not only the dirty lying bastards, the dirty thieving lying bastards. That's when he discovered that the money that he had robbed at the bank didn't actually tie up by the time it went to court. It was about $4,000 missing. And he was obviously frustrated that he couldn't say they've took his $4,000 until fucking, because the money's there anyway. So we talk about fear. We talk about the fear of things happening again, and we talk about fear again, and then we talk about more fear. And I think what has served me well is being frightened when I was younger, excessively frightened. No, you're frightened every day, because I felt it every day. Not every day, maybe Monday to Friday, but every hours, every now and again, it fucking plays a toll on you. You know, as though you try to keep a brave face on it and all the rest of it. This is all part of the unfinished business. This is a bit about the anti-bullying, you know. And the hardest question of all is, would you tell somebody who's been the victim of bullying, or would you tell parents? Because my bullying is looking at the best situation for the kids. And I always wished that somebody would have stepped in and went, aye, that's enough with me. And people turn around and say sometimes, oh, Paul, what's this got to do with you? I went, nothing. But if I sit and watch it and walk away, I might as well fucking take part in it. It's no good. If you don't see it, you can't. I'm not saying to completely blank something. And people will then say, well, what levels are you prepared to get involved in? And I think if people are fair and square, if they're good with their fists, go and sort it out like fucking men. But sometimes the fists will kind of accelerate from fists to knives to guns to fucking somebody hit man, and a big long episode. But hopefully what we can channel on is stories about me, things that have happened to me that will prevent the finger waving exercise. You say to kids, don't be doing this, don't be. Because the minute you tell kids not to do it, they're going to go and do it. But there's a younger audience out there, and the younger audience is obviously their dads have went through it. You know, I've got people now that are grandparents, you know, I'm not a grandparent yet, but sometimes I feel it, 430. But the whole point of it is what's your purpose for doing a book? What's your purpose for making these, not allegations, it's matters of fact. So we can take the word allegation out, but why are you bringing these matter of facts that are so blatantly obvious that if our journalists were really incensed on how Scots law has been abused, why is it never been reported? Because there are most of them, if not the biggest majority of them, would destroy their source of information. More importantly, they would say you're having an impact, or you will have an impact on potential jury members, because there's going to, it's inevitable that if you keep brushing things under the carpet, it's going to end up looking like a fucking camel one day.
Yeah. And
somebody will turn around and go and make a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, fall out it and go, what is this? So it's unavoidable. Again, it's a bit unfinished business, and it's also part and parcel with cause and effect. This is what caused it, that's affects it, this is what we've done. There's no great big complication other than the fact that we ask people to keep an open mind, because it would be very hard for me to sit and explain all this without my corroboration and what I want and what I need to bring to the table for hopefully a few different reasons, whether people will be excited reading about new things, whether people will be disgusted.
When was your last book? Was it about 10 years ago?
The last book would be about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So, and we'll get back to the request that was made, why don't you write any more books? It was a matter of respect to Reg, I wouldn't write another book, but when it was touched upon to do a tribute to Reg for this new stuff that we're doing, didn't hesitate. But it has to be right, and I think when you're getting feedback for people that you're working with on the basis that this is, you can't have a time scale on this, it'll be ready when it's ready, sort of thing, but it's not for me to say when it's ready, it's for other people to digest multiple things, to understand the specifics of what it all is, where it's going to go, and where it's going to put Mojo on the map. Because you're going to be confronted with a lot of things that I've had to confront in my life.